Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about a very common problem that a lot of us gardeners are facing right now, and that is the squash vine borer. So today I'm going to show you what they are, how you can deal with them, and even how to prevent you from getting them in the first place. Let's go. The squash vine borer is basically the offspring of a very common moth called clearwings. And though the clearwing moth is not harmful to your plants in any way, the eggs or the offspring of this moth are generally what cause all the problems. So what the moth will do is it will fly over to your squash plants, it will lay its eggs on the main center stem or on some type of leaf, and once those eggs hatch, the larvae that come out will actually chew or burrow their way into the main stem and basically just start killing your plant from the inside out. And these larvae will just sit inside the stem, eating and growing bigger until eventually there's nothing left except a hollow stem, which will eventually rot and your plants will die. Now, luckily for us, there are a lot of different ways that you can deal with this pest, but the main thing that you can do and you want to do is manage these guys right up front before any significant damage occurs. So I'm going to show you guys right now on a squash plant some of the signs that you can be looking for and some of the signs that your plants will give you if you have a squash vine borer. Okay, so here is a squash plant that seems to look pretty good. The leaves are nice and green. The stem looks to be pretty healthy. Not too many problems going on. The stem is nice and hard. It is growing flowers and squash nicely, and overall this plant looks good. But if we move over here, you can actually see that some of the leaves are yellowing. The plant in general does not seem to be growing as big. And if we look at the stem, you can see that it's almost like a rotting going on down here. The stem is all over the place. There's little pieces, and it just does not look good. And this is a telltale sign that you have a squash vine borer. Now, this is a pretty severe case of a squash vine borer that has been in the stem for too long. It has gotten from here all the way up to almost here. It is soft feeling, and this is a great way to tell that you have a squash vine borer. If we manage it right now and we get the squash vine borer out of there, this plant should stay alive and keep growing. But if we leave that worm in there, this plant will 100% eventually die. Now, if you have a vine borer present in your squash plant, there is not much you can do except carefully remove it from the plant. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now. Okay, so what you're going to need to start is just a pair of tweezers, a knife, or just something that you're able to cut a slit into the main stem. And I know that sounds bad, like you shouldn't be doing that, but if you carefully cut a slit and be careful not to completely break the stem in half, your plant's going to recover. I mean, it's already pretty much gone on the inside because of that worm. So if we're just carefully cutting it out, it should survive and should be fine. So what you're going to want to do is just carefully cut on the inside, again, making sure that you're not damaging or breaking the stem completely in half or cutting it in half, because otherwise it will die at that point. So what you're going to do is just cut it open and then look on the inside of it. You can actually see the worm in there moving around. And all you're going to do is grab the tweezers and just carefully pull it out. And you can see there that that's the problem. And if you would have just left that in the stem, your plant would be just completely gone on the inside. Cut it out. And all you can do, or all you want to do, is just, you can put this in water or smush it, whatever you want to do. But you want to make sure that you kill this thing, because you do not want these coming back and then starting the whole cycle over by laying their eggs and so on and so forth. Okay, and then once the vine borer is removed, the stem, you can leave it like this, but if you want to add extra protection or make sure that this thing does come back, you can wrap it in tape or something so that the cut will heal itself and bond back together with the existing plant. But like I said earlier, if you leave the plant like this and you make sure that there's still some part of the stem left, at least half of it, the plant will come back. It has plenty of energy to take nutrients from the roots to the leaves and fruits of this plant. So this plant, it may look rough for a couple days because we did just cut into it, but eventually, once the plant comes back to its health, it's going to continue its growth, get back on track, and before long, you're going to have tons of squash ready to eat. All right, so now you know how to remove the squash borer from your plant, but there are some ways that you can prevent the moth from laying its eggs and from the larva eating your plants in the first place. The first way that I've seen that you can prevent the vine borer from attacking your squash plants is by just wrapping the main stem in aluminum foil or some other type of protective layer. Now, this does work, but if you're growing a lot of plants, that is a lot of time and energy that you're going to have to be putting into to wrap all of those plants. And a lot of times, if you just wrap the main stem, the problem with that is that the moth will just lay on one of its leaves, and once those eggs hatch, the worm will just kind of crawl underneath the aluminum foil and eventually find a way to that main stem. Another thing that I've seen that you can do is mound the soil around the main stem so that the soil covers the bottom portion of the main stem where that vine borer would attack. And this can work, but again, it's going to kind of do the same thing as the aluminum foil or protective layer, in that the worm is eventually probably going to find the main stem some way or another. Both of these are great protective measures or ways that you can further prevent the worm from attacking, but they're not always going to be 100% successful, and you may still see some worm damage or some pest damage from the vine borer. Although those other methods do work, by far the best way to prevent squash borers is by breaking their life cycle up. The clearwing moth usually lays its eggs sometime in June and early July. So if you wait to plant your squash plants until after their egg laying season is over and they have completed that cycle in their growth, you're not going to have to worry about these worms in your plants because they've already gone through that process. They've already laid all their eggs. So your plants will no longer be vulnerable to this pest. Most types of squash, especially your summer squash like zucchini and crookneck, these grow super fast, especially in the heat of summer. So if you wait until after the egg laying season of this moth is complete, you're still in most places going to have plenty of days to grow and have mature plants and lots of squash to eat. So for places that are heavily infected with this pest, it's almost always best to wait a month or two and plant your squash plants later on in the season. But if you're in one of the rare locations that do not have enough growing days, you can always try your hand at planting earlier on in the season. And if you do get a squash vine borer, just making sure that you're constantly checking your plants, especially in their egg laying season, so that you can see right away if your plants have been infected with this pest and use this video to remove them and manage them accordingly. I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you learned something new, please leave a like and comment with any questions that you might have. I'm also curious to hear how you guys remove your squash borers, if you found this video accurate or if there are some tips and tricks that you have learned in your growing season. I don't know everything, I'm still learning, so I would love to hear what you guys do to prevent the squash borer in your garden. And make sure to check out our seed shop as well. We've got tons of awesome varieties that you can grow in your garden and follow along with us as we grow as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.